So, making it here for what we had in the second session on flat files, what I missed to show you in the screens. So, we talk about the structure of the flat files. You got that. And what I wanted to show you was when you download your category listing report, how that looks like, and what are the considerations that we need to have when we get one category listing report. So the first thing that you're gonna see is a file like this one. And if you remember, we went into the details of each tab. So you have examples, data definitions, etc., etc. We are gonna work in the template. And when you are optimizing for your category listing report, make sure that when you click review, this here, it says unprotect sheet. So when you unprotect the sheet, when I click this, I'm able now to change information in the flat file. Okay, it's very important you do this, because if not, it will be hard to make customizations, and especially add some information that is not in the drop down menus, or stuff like that. So the way you see it, and this is an example of a real category listing report that I downloaded. As you can see here, this seller doesn't really, it's not really optimized for a bunch of stuff. And what I mean by this is it doesn't have information in fields like this one. And if you see, there is a bunch of missing information, missing information, missing information. Also, what I wanted to show you here, and I mentioned this part, the gray areas. When you see gray areas, this means, but in theory, this means that this field, like this attribute, is not designed for this async specifically. So for my async number one, or my SKU number one, this field is not relevant. That's what the system is telling me. And the thing that I discovered is that you could put information there even when the system is not tell you that it's not relevant. The fact that it's not relevant doesn't have to do with the possibility that you have to input information and how that information impacts your SEO and your indexing and ranking and all that. This section, which is like the salmon orange section, is the things that are required, 100% required. You shouldn't be deleting anything from here. You shouldn't be deleting manufacturer part or item form or unit count, because they are required. And if you do, that will give you an error. Okay, it is very, very important. The other thing is, when you see that the field is highlighted in red, that means that it's needed that you put that information. That is on the side that is required, because it is in the salmon and orange section. This is needed. The system is telling you they are missing that information. This is true for all child asyncs. This is not true for parent asyncs. So if you can see here, this is a parent async. My SKU number 2 is the parent async, and therefore I don't see the prod ID nor the prod type or the manufacturer part. It is not necessarily to have that information in parent asyncs. And I will mention, and I said that in the webinar, you shouldn't be optimizing parent asyncs. You need to have the title, yes, and you need to have description, yes, but other attributes, especially when we go down to the green section, that doesn't need to be in the parent async. Because if you start optimizing and putting a lot of information in the parent async, the system will read it as a child async, and you will lose that connection. So you will basically damage the parent async. Okay, so one of the things is in the images. So we went over, this is the image section, and there was a question in the webinar about how can you put images on your flat file. So the way to do it is here. So this is the field for it, and there are two options, and I'm gonna show you two options that I have. So here, when you go to the website, this website is the one that I like to use to get my URLs when the images are not on Amazon. When they are completely new, I click new post and I drop the image here, and then it will give me a set of links, and I'll get the one that ends in .g, .gp, .jpeg or PNG. If your listing is on Amazon, for example, let's see this. If your listing is already on Amazon, you can do right click and get here copy image address. When I copy the image address, then I go to my flat file and paste it. And as you can see here, the link for images always ends in .gp, no, JPG or PNG, always. If that doesn't end in that format, it will reject it. Okay, it is important. And the other thing is, uploading images in flat files is very, very useful when you have situations where you cannot change images in the front end, or in the UI of Seller Central. Okay, so consider that, and also having those images organized in the right way, and having it using the flat file as your database of having that information. It is important, especially when you have situations where your listing got delisted or restricted, or it went off the catalog, and you normally lose images. So if you have it, make sure to get it and put it in the flat file. If, and this is interesting, if you are uploading your category listing report because you want to optimize something, but you don't want to work with images at all, and you're like, no, you know what, I don't care about that, I'll use the UI, what I'll do is delete this section completely. So because I unprotect the sheet, now I'm able to click delete and delete it. If I don't click unprotect, that deletion wouldn't happen. Or when I add a new column, that wouldn't happen either. Okay, this is the other section that is very important. The variation section, if you have variations, this is how it works. So you need to get a parent SKU, and that's related to a parent SKU that needs to be here. Obviously, it needs to exist in your category listing report, and then you tell them what is the relationship. So this is also a parent. So the first one is a parent, and this one is a parent, and this is the parent SKU, and it says like, from this parent I have these childs, my variation is variation, and there are other options, which is accessories and package contains. I have only used variations because accessories works similarly in the front end, and in the back end doesn't give you any kind of better indexation or ranking. You still see it as a variation on Amazon.com. And then variation theme, and this is the part where I guess we miss in the webinar when I was talking, is that there are times where you have variation themes that are allowed or are designed for your category, but you want something different. For example, in this case, I have color, size, blah blah blah, all of it, right? But in this scenario, I want to do flavor color, and that's the example that I was showing in the webinar. If I don't see flavor color here, I could use flavor color if that's a variation theme that exists in other categories. So the way that I'll do it, and if you try to do it here, because this is a drop down menu, if I try to write some stuff, it will give me an error, I think. Flavor, flavor color. Okay, you see, it gives me an error. The way to work around that is doing this in a one that is empty, that doesn't have an async. So I will go down and I put flavor color. Then I'll drag it up. I'll do this, and then I just delete this part. Okay, ta-da! That's the way you force variation themes. Again, if I don't think flavor color is a variation theme that exists across the catalog. That's not a possible combination. But if you have in one category you have style size, and in another category you don't have that option, you could use it. The most important thing is that you know exactly how that is written, because if you see here this combination color size, you see that all letters are lowercase, right? But color, the C is uppercase. Or if you go down and if you see flavor size, the F and the S is uppercase. If you don't have that, you will get an error. So it needs to be written exactly the way that the catalog uses it in another category. Okay, so perfect. Package level, package contains, and this one, I have never used it, to be very honest. I don't think it's relevant. I it is sorry. This is only useful when you're using the variation type package contains. Okay, when you use package contains, this is what you need to use to identify your variation instead of the variation theme. So it's different. And I never use this type of variation. It doesn't look really nice in the front end. So variation and using unit package quantity, it's normally one. So item package quantity, that's the one that you use for packaging normally. Then we have this column, which is probably the one that triggers everything in a flat file. Is the update delete. You will use. I do recommend you, if you're starting to use flat files, I do recommend you to only use partial update. Okay, because partial update will update all of the things that you have changed and maintain the same information in the things that you didn't touch in a flat file. That sometimes it's like weird, and sometimes they change stuff when you don't input the information, but it's very rare. When you use full update, and I say full like quote unquote, is this one, update. When you use update, that is the one that will refresh everything and will probably remove information if you didn't put new. So make sure, if you're starting, use always partial update. When you get to a point where your flat file is beautiful, super optimized, and you have all the information that you want, you can use update to refresh that harder in the backend. It's not necessarily if everything works properly. And if you're doing troubleshooting, if you're making an async to change a title, if you delete one async with the inventory loaded file and want to upload it again, make sure to use update. Okay, don't use partial update for those cases, because it will go back to whatever it was before. Okay, so then we have the discovery, and I think for this section we covered um, in the webinar. I believe that at that point I just already changed my screen, but just to go over quickly, the green section is the section where you will have the most amount of possibilities to input information. I mean, to put more keywords, have more attributes, and get your SEO and indexation better. So make sure that everything that you see here, it's fully fill in. Like, you need to have search terms, you need to have scent name, you need to have flavor, direction, style name, all of it, everything that you can think about that is relevant. So for example, style name, in my example, in this category listing report, I have some supplements. So my style name, if I want to have something because of indexation, I want the style name to say powder to go, right? It is a product that it comes in powders, in small patches, so you can take it when you travel, or when you're out of your home, stuff like that. That will be my style name. And if you think about it, that's probably not a standard in the industry, right? But it's relevant to me because it gives me space to put that keyword in the back end, which is like powder to go or powder travel, powder pouches or whatever. And most of the times, these attributes are not necessarily shown in the front end, and that's my favorite kind of attributes, the one that you can input whatever information and it's not shown in the front end. So basically you can put keywords and you don't see it. And also remember that this is a work of like error and trial and error. Like you will put information there and then you upload it. If you don't like it, you can change it the way that it looks, right? Nothing is written in stone. And if you don't have any issues in your catalog, and I'll say this, like if you don't have any contribution discrepancies or anything like that, it's the time for you to optimize and get those points, get those contribution points in those specific attributes. Okay, so I hope this helps, and thank you so much for being part of the ABC week. See you soon.